that we are once again live with author Patricia Cori, author of the new Sirian Revelations. Take two. Because take one was, in my professional judgment, sabotaged by the anti-disclosure forces, which included my subconscious, which actually worked toward divulging something, because I spelled Sirian as S-Y-R-I-A-N instead of S-I-R-A-N. And that Syria is a country sabotaged by the anti-disclosure forces. Let me just include. And as you pointed out, Patricia, Syria is a country, whereas Sirius B, and now I'm going to turn it over to you to describe the Syrian High Council and the new Sirian Revelations. And if you could share with those who are coming to this for the first time, and like myself, not for the first time, but mistook the spelling of the two and some connection there, which I believe exists, in terms of context. What are these revelations, and what role does this council take in the affairs of Earth? So over to you.
As usual, Alfred, you've asked me about 8 questions in one, so I'll try to address the gist of your intro. So first of all, thanks again for setting up another interview, considering that we got a bit wonky on the last one. And for the answer to that question, just a brief overview. You asked me the last time, how do we know if you're really channeling beings from a higher dimension, or if it's just some sort of a program in your mind or whatever? So basically, there are a lot of people channeling or believing that they're channeling higher dimensional beings and all kinds of things and beings. I believe, and have had so much validation in the material, to believe that I'm working with a collective of extra-dimensional beings. The Sirian High Council is how they present themselves to me, and they represent a greater body of disincarnate beings, extra-dimensional beings that resonate and vibrate to the frequencies of the 6th dimension. These beings are not in body anymore. They're light beings, for lack of a more precise term. And they, as you mentioned, they are resonant with Sirius B. So for people who don't know what I'm talking about, Sirius is a trinary star system. And it was first, I think, the very first realization of Sirius was when the Dogon tribes presented themselves, presented to researchers their understanding that they had been visited by beings from this star system, Sirius, and that these beings, which they called the Nomo, threw out some sort of they created in front of their eyes a little bit of a lake, and out of this lake walked these beings called the Nomo, who they described and depicted as half fish, half human forms, which of course we have seen in many historical depictions. And they described with great accuracy that there were 3 Sirian stars. Sirius A, the one that's still in the sky, Sirius B that had ascended, and Sirius C. And everybody refuted this, but then the scientists caught up with it, and the astronomers, astrologists, and sure enough, they were able to find through the wobble of Sirius A they were able to track this second star. So Sirius B is a star that has, out of the 3 stars in this system, has ascended, if you will, to the 6th dimension. And Sirius C is that little troublemaker we keep talking about. Anu is the name of that star, and it has ascended to the 4th dimension. And so the Sirian High Council are beings that vibrate to the 6th dimensional frequencies of light. And I have been working with them for, well, all of my life, I guess, because as a child, I used to see them. I used to call them the little blue people. But basically, the huge opening I've had in this lifetime began in 1996 in the Julia Set crop circle. That's where I was attuned again to them. And ever since, I have been working with them, bringing through pretty phenomenal information. And I can say that because I'm not the one that's writing it. I don't believe that I'm the source. I believe that I'm the scribe. And so there we go. We're 20 years in now, and the new book, the new Sirian Revelations, is a little bit overdue with regard to the fact that the first revelations came in 20 years ago. They were extraordinarily groundbreaking information, and now we're at a much higher level. In 20 years, we have really soared, and now the new messages and new information are what I'm being told by people who have read the book, absolutely on another level. And that's what we're talking about today.
Hi, sorry, I was out there, since we're now live on Facebook. I was out there posting in groups, kind of calling people into the village square. Hear ye, hear ye. Well, so let's start at the beginning, and I'm looking at an ebook version of the book, which, as I understand it, was just published on December 5th, and today's December 10th, 2017. And chapter 1 is called The Earlier Transmission, Prophecy Unfolds. So what is the earlier transmissions, and what are these prophecies all about?
Okay. While we're doing this, I'm just going to pull the file up on my desk too, so that if you refer to any pages, I'll be able to get on board with you.
Sorry,
give me a second here.
I hope that I have the correct.
Yeah, I just sent it to you.
Yeah, but I'm hoping that I opened the right file. Let me just close it right here.
Okay, I'm on board. So you're talking about the file that I sent you with the book cover and the PDF file of the book, the digital.
Okay. I didn't receive one with a book cover, but at least it's not showing up on my. Yeah, but go ahead, please, and I'll figure this out from my end.
Okay. Question was, what are the earlier prophecies? Okay, in 1996, I started bringing in this extraordinary information, and there was information there that was absolutely either unknown or absolutely new to most people who are, let's say, in the alternative community. We started to hear about, well, the first time, I think I told you the last time I spoke, the first I ever heard of HARP was from the Sirian High Council. Chemtrails, I had never seen a chemtrail until then, 1996, when they explained what that was about. And they set up, if you will, a vision of what was going to be unfolding in these years of transition leading up to 2012. which a lot of people poo-pooed and said nothing really happened. And to those people, I've always said, well, you were looking for fireworks and the Big Bang Theory to explode. But, 2012 was a remarkable shift in so many ways. I mean, this is when everything kicked into high gear on both sides of the polar fence. So those early transmissions spoke of everything from cloning to HAARP frequencies, scalar waves, things that today we've been speaking about a lot, but at the time, this was pretty unknown information. And the message of the council was, at that time, the underlying theme, if you will, was let's talk about the both sides of this polar field. You're not going to be empowered if you're only focusing on the light and the classic love and light theory. You must also, to be in your power, must also be able to look at the dark and how it works. And your assignment on planet Earth, what you came in for, if you're you believe you're a light worker, is to help shine light into that darkness and bring it up energetically. So those earlier prophecies and that earlier material was very much about empowering us to understand our mission and what we came in for as soul essence in this incredible time of solar shifting. So I want to take a breath here so that you can say something, and then I'll go on to explain that.
Okay, well, I'm busy getting the webinar started on Facebook, and our resistance has now shifted to being on Facebook. So we're battling the forces of the artificial intelligence inside the internet, because it's really, really fierce just to get like links posted. It's just amazing. I've never seen it. I know that this is a very this is
always.
What?
I have never had a time with you when we haven't confronted this. Is this normal with your other guests? Or am I just popular with the forces that be?
Each guest is unique, but the guests here are the Sirian High Council.
I know.
So this is obviously comes with their territory, because they're members of the Regional Galactic Governance Council. And when we interviewed when we interviewed lifelong lifelong NORAD officer who was in charge of the of NORAD sending jet interceptors to chase after UFOs that came into the North American airspace. Stanley Fulham, who was from Winnipeg, he was put in touch with the Regional Galactic Governance Council through this soul group, interdimensional soul group. And there consists of the Sirians, the Alpha Centaurians, the Pleiadians, and others. And so they said that a member of the council wanted to land at the United Nations. This was in 2010, wanted to land at the United Nations and help clean the environment of the Earth, which was full of radiation, from ionizing radiation, from nuclear bomb testing, from actual bombs, from depleted uranium weapons, and from the radiation from Fukushima and other false flags. So so that now, since the Sirians are members of the Regional Galactic Governance Council, the council stated that they would decloak their ships over the United Nations, over New York, on October 13th, 2010, which they did on that day, which was the day before the United Nations. I just have to say this. There's somebody seeking my services. There we go. So I, and so on October 13th, 2010, as predicted by Stanley Fulham in his book of communications with the Regional Galactic Governance Council, that includes the Sirians, the Alpha Centaurians, and the Pleiadians, the council decloaked its ships over New York, and that was the day before the UN Outer Space Council met at the UN to discuss the protocols for greeting extraterrestrials. So now, this is the new Sirian revelations, that you come as a messenger from the Sirian High Council that has already decloaked the ships over New York on October 13th, 2010, and then again in January in 2011 over Moscow and over London, UK, which Stanley Fulham also predicted before he was assassinated by a fast-acting pancreatic cancer in December of 2010. So I can see how the resistance to the new Sirian revelation by the land-based forces, whatever they are, you know, we haven't identified them, but we're on the way toward identifying them. The sort of anti-light forces, let's call them the anti-disclosure forces that are against the Regional Galactic Governance Council, that sort of have oversight over this planet, as you yourself said in our previous series of interviews, that the council really was involved in the creation of Homo sapiens, as I understand it, as a collective. So I can see why your appearance here now today to summarize and announce the new Sirian revelations would be highly disturbing to the powers that think they be of the means of communication, you know, where they've gone to monopolize the airwaves, they've gone to monopolize the money supply, and suddenly that we've got digital currency and we're going, meh, meh, meh. They've gone to put all the newspapers in 6%, you know, just like the protocols told them to do. And we go, meh, 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 on the internet and on webinars on Facebook. So it's like, hey guys, when are you going to give up all your false flags and all your resistance to the Sirian High Council, to the Pleiadians, and to the Alpha Centaurians? And these are guys here probably with some low-level, low-vibration, you know, reptilian connected, you know, freak show extraterrestrials. I mean, I'm just over-characterizing them. That, you know, sent them on some false flag mission, you know, and...
Well, I would like to interject here that I need to remind you and the readers that the council are not ETs in body. So when you're talking about ships decloaking, yes, the council is overseeing in a governance position energetically, but they're not physical beings. And they are not, and there's a lot of debate about this because people draw pictures.
But they're upper dimensional beings.
Yes.
They're in an whatever form, light bodies or upper dimensional energy bodies. They're in some form of
absolutely
existence.
But this is a point that is important to share because there's a lot of confusion now. There's every kind of disinformation along with the information, and we know that's deliberate sometimes, and sometimes it's misguided. But it's important to recognize that, at least from my perspective, the beings that I'm communicating with are no longer physical beings. They're not alien, ET beings, but rather very, like you said, upper dimensional or higher dimensional beings who are working as an energy body and a consciousness collective, helping not only the human race, but also many species on this planet adjust and prepare for solar ascension.
Right. And so why did they come to you with this new Sirian revelation? You said that you channeled it all, in 13 weeks? And then could you tell us a bit about the whole thing? Why now? Why is this coming out now? I mean, what is it? Tell us about it.
All right. Well, over the years, since 1996, I have done 14 books, and most of these are channeled. I did have one autobiographical type of book and an attempt at a novel, but basically there's been, over the years, all this information has been coming through at various stages of this intense evolutionary pace that we're in, which we know and agree that it has accelerated to the breaking point. We are really in fast and furious now. And people obviously have been asking me, where are the council? Why haven't we heard any more from them? And of course, it's not exactly true because they came through in messages from the whales and dolphins who also sit on the council. This is an interesting idea. The idea of interdimensional and extra-dimensional whales and dolphins that are already, first of all, that the universe is, the galaxy is, and the multidimensional universe is woven together by the whales and dolphins frequencies. But some of them, many of them are preceding us in the process of ascension so that they can help the Earth and the sun. Again, this is important and integral to the Sirian information, is that it's the sun that's ascending and all the planets with it. So I do like to emphasize that. So I have also been gifted with receiving information from the whales and dolphins. And now the information, when I got the buzz that it was time to sit down again to channel for them, I kind of wasn't really ready for it. I've got quite a lot of other things going on in my life. And my publisher, North Atlantic Books, they're wonderful. They've been behind this work 100%. And the publisher, when I told him I think there's another book coming, he said, can you get it done in 6 months or 8 months? And I said, are you kidding? Hello? The caliber of this material is very intense. I have no background in quantum physics and higher mathematical constructs and the theory and philosophy of simultaneous worlds and loopholes and all this stuff. So that even though I'm channeling it, I still have to have the cognizance to be able to put into, I mean, they work with my language as well as their own in order to bring this through. It's very complex how channeling works anyway. But at any rate, the first couple of months of this 8-month assignment, and I'm sure, Alfred, you can appreciate what that means, having yourself an author of important books. I was like, how am I going to do this? And 2 months passed, 3 months passed. I just wasn't in the right space for it. And then all of a sudden it was like, clear the runway. It is time. and I'm being theatrical now, saying the house started to shake, which is just a metaphor. But I knew it was time, like the other times, when the vibrational shift in this house, in my life, just changes. It's almost like there's a whirlwind inside the building. And I received this book in 3 months, from start to finish, 260 pages of material, of complex material. This is not, a love story. This is very articulated information regarding the complexities of the multiverse. I can't hear you, Alfred.
Yeah, let me go here. I mean, I just hate to say it, but I can't, the PDF that you sent me, I can't get it into my reader. And so I finally have it open now. And
Okay.
that has nothing to do with anything except my particular equipment. So all that I'm saying is that, is that I think there's something really large going on here that is much larger than just a book interview. And I just want to make that point as someone who does frequent book interviews. I think that there's a presence of the Sirian High Council, which would be at a 6th density, perhaps even 7th density. And if we go to the Pleiadians, we're talking about a 5th density. So, and then the Arcturans, maybe they're at a 6, upper 5th, lower 6th, but the Sirians are getting up there. So that's all the reflection that I'm trying to get across. That it's that as a broadcaster, it's an unusual multidimensional task to tackle the fabric and the book with a distinguished author as yourself, and you're writing, creative works of creative fiction that are based on this, that are being made into major motion pictures. So you have a you have a multi-dimensional creative life going on that readers should be aware of. And so this is a very complex situation. Now,
let me just give you a little anecdote. I woke up one morning, the council come to me a lot in dreams, and I woke up and I heard them clearly saying, all right, you need to write a film. You need to speak to millions of people now. A film. You've got to write a film. And I laughed because it's like, excuse me, do you mind if I have my cup of coffee? And that morning, I had no clue at all about screenwriting. I mean, seriously, it's a very formulaic, very structured, artistic methodology. And I had no clue. So I looked on the internet, how to write a screenplay. And I kept hearing this, don't worry about it, just get it done. We'll help you, we'll help. So how to write a screenplay, how hard can this be? I bought the software, looked at a few notes on the internet, how to write a screenplay, which people go to college for the University of California 4 years with a screenwriting focus. No experience at all. I sat down and I wrote. The Emissary was first a screenplay. The book that you refer to as my novel. First, I wrote it as a screenplay. And it was about a psychic woman. Gee, I wonder who that could have been. Who could have been my muse, who had contact with whales. And this story evolves. It's taking place in your turf in Vancouver. It goes into becoming a novel, or let's say a movie, but the message is there that this woman has messages from the whales, and their message has everything to do with HARP and this in the ocean, these towers, HARP structures in the ocean that are disrupting the frequency of the Earth. So, it's like at a certain point in that process, the council said, we'll take it from here. And even in the screenplay format, they were writing it. It's quite bizarre, but it's very nice for me because I don't have to think so much. But, and that has had a lot of success, although we still haven't got it into production. But there's a response, breaking into Hollywood with its agenda, with a story that is anti-agenda, is tricky. So when you talk about the Sirians being present and dealing with that, yes, they are always present and overseeing and involved with anything that has to do with how I represent them.
Now, could I, with your permission, could I quote just a bit from the opening of chapter 8? And the title of chapter 8 from this new Sirian Revelations is entitled, Who Shall Inherit the Earth? And it's just to kind of read just a sentence or two and then ask it over to you. To elaborate further, the imminent process of solar ascension. So it's the sun that's going to ascend. So that's what happened in Sirius.
That's the theme throughout the Sirian material, is that the star, our star, is ascending as the Sirian star.
And actually, I remember one of our previous conversations, you had said that the Anunnaki were from Planet X, which was an unascended star of Sirius C.
No, an unascended planet of Sirius C.
You're right. An unascended planet of Sirius C, which is an ascended star or an unascended star?
Yeah, Sirius C ascended, but only to the fourth dimension. And in the passing through that vortex,
I see.
Nibiru
got
expelled from the process. So
got its what? Sorry?
It's about Nibiru.
Yeah, but what happened to Nibiru? I missed that.
When a Sirius C, I'm laughing because I'm thinking about the people that are like, what? When Sirius C was ascending to the fourth, ascending through its own astral cord,
right?
It had this very dark energy of this planet Nibiru, which is one of the reasons why it didn't get past the fourth dimension. And when it was passing through its vortex, Nibiru couldn't hold the frequency, so it was expelled out, ejected out of the process while the star was moving through. This planet didn't make it. So it's described in Atlantis Rising, my second book,
right?
How it started to ricochet. It was in the Sirius A gravitational field, but it couldn't hold. I mean, imagine a planet being ejected out of a solar movement of such magnitude, so that it was caught by Sirius A, it swung around, and these kinds of celestial dynamics are openly discussed now by NASA. And then ricocheted out, and the closest star was Ra, our sun. So it's been ricocheting back and forth on a trajectory between these two stars.
Yeah.
So Sitchin talked about Nibiru and how it came in from galactic night and went back out, but he never told us how or why that was. But the council say the answer to your question is that it's caught in this gravitational rotation orbit between these two stars.
Very interesting. Now, so
you were reading the first paragraph.
Yeah. To elaborate further the imminent process of solar ascension, it is essential that we first dispel an erroneous concept now circulating via alternative information networks and amongst metaphysical communities, people like us, and very possibly lingering in your own mind, which we do humbly address here with due respect and consideration of your free will. I really like that, this isn't the way it is. We are in a free will universe. And exactly. I like that it revolves around the somewhat popular misunderstanding that the Earth alone is ascending, and only a part of it at that. It is a rather curious idea, but then there are still those who perceive Earth as the center of the universe. This theory sees your sphere splitting into two separate worlds, forever independent of each other with two diametrically opposed destinies. In this modern day rendition of your ancient judgment books, the values they impose, the good Earth, whereby select souls have made some sort of grade and moved up, will be ascending to the fifth or higher dimensions, bypassing the fourth altogether. The other, bound to the darkness of evil beings and unruly hordes of the enlightened, would be rapidly destroyed and die a lingering death, deemed its due punishment for all the wrongs that its inhabited perpetrated in response to their fear, indifference, and violence, and taking all those souls deemed unworthy down with it. Now, that's a pretty mighty couple of paragraphs. That is a real revelation, because I can tell you that the meme of the separation of worlds has been like making the rounds for at least 50 years. I can remember being at Peacequake, which was a concert that we organized in San Francisco Civic Center Plaza in June of 1982. It was financed by the co-founder of Apple Computers, and we went up to to Mount Tam right before it. When we met with his channel, she said, "Oh, and the Earth is going to split into two realms. And over here, all the generals and the war makers are going to go to that planet, and all the enlightened souls are going to go to this planet." So that has been circulating in, as they say, the subculture for many subcultures. You know, people talk about the ascension and this and that, and it's like memed into so many places. So that's my extensive introduction to you. If you could tell us about this.
All right. The council don't mess around. They challenge just about everything. And by making us look at it from our own perspective, they give us a field of opportunity to understand how these memes are created. So in the question here, where they say you've got these two, this concept where the Earth is splitting, and you have these two alternatives. This really is not the way energy works. This is, you and I talked about this the other day when we had our conversation. I don't believe, and certainly from what I've learned through them, they don't believe that you can separate out good and bad. This is a concept that is inherent in the human experience because of religion and dogma that we've been living with throughout history. But in reality, we cannot be really cognizant of the problems that we face as a civilization and as individuals if we dismiss everything that's wrong with the planet by saying that the bad guys are responsible for it. The Anunnaki are the ones that are the problem. The generals, the warmongers, they're the problem. And we light workers, we're the good forces, we're the wonderful part, we're the part that's going to save the world. And it's like, hold on a minute here. Surely we are mature enough to recognize that those precise divisions are unreal. We have dark sides in all of us. We do. Whether it's because we drink water out of a plastic bottle. I mean, that's not dark, but it's the misuse of energy. It's the misrespect for the planet. It's contributing to the ecological disease of this planet. So there's a level of unconscious of things that we do, like burning fuel, like driving cars, like using cell phones, yada, yada, that call us to our responsibility of contributing to the dysfunctional aspect of life on our planet. And we love to blame. Who doesn't want to blame the reptilians for everything that ever went wrong on the earth? But the truth is, inherent in all human beings is a vast range of emotion. And there is no good group and bad group. And you've seen this in your own interactions with people in the ET community, the roar, the raging war, the name-calling, backstabbing within our own supposedly enlightened groups, right? So inherent in human nature is a vast potential of emotion. And the counselor is saying the idea that all the bad part is going to be in one burning hell of the earth, and the rest, the good people, are going to pull away on this earth that's just going to split away, and I don't know how that's going to happen, is tear away into a higher dimension. And the council respect the perpetrator of that information, or perpetrators of that information, by saying we humbly suggest that perhaps that's a misconstrued idea, and that you are responsible for the whole. If all you talk about is the whole, the one, the unity, and yet when it comes to talking about bad, oh no, I'm not involved with that. I'm on the light force team. And, it's very humbling and very responsible to be able to see within yourself how, on some levels, you create disharmony. And that, no, you're not going to have to choose, or you're not going to be judged. This is so religious. It's so Judeo-Christian. The judgment day comes, the energy that's not high enough stays with the crashed earth, and the higher energy beings move up. And the council say, that's not the way energy works. The way energy works is, it is the entirety. You are a unit of consciousness on planet Earth, and you're responsible for the entirety as much as for your own individual reality. So they don't adhere to that idea, but rather, as we spoke about the other day, that the entire planet and the entire race is going to have to face its karma. And that is where we're headed when we move into the fourth dimension. It's time to face our individual and community civilization karma as beings, guardians of this planet from time immemorial. Doesn't that make more sense? Doesn't it? I find it very empowering to think that, yeah, I'm responsible for some disharmony. I own it. Yeah, I used to buy plastic water bottles. I do drive a car. I hate to contribute to that. So it's more of a matter of degrees, I think, and less a matter of black and white, dark and light reality.
So I remember, so is what they're saying that the entire solar system, the sun is ascending into what density?
All right, well, if you remember the earlier books, The Cosmos of Soul and Atlantis Rising, talk about how the sun is, the black holes are nothing more than astral cords of the deities. They call every planetary being a deity. So the sun, and it's interesting because science is catching up with this idea. Now they're openly saying maybe black holes aren't black holes. Maybe they're passageways to another dimension, which is written in my introduction of this book, the new Sirian Revelations. So they say, and have always said, that our sun and all the planets in our system are going to pass through the sun's astral cords, and we're going to move into the fourth dimension. And we are already feeling the flutter, they call it, the fluttering of the fourth dimension as it starts to interact. They had a beautiful way of saying that, something about it's like litmus paper. I can't remember the quote right now, but how the flutter of this fourth dimension is like litmus paper, testing, touching the third, and affecting the third in ways that have to do with time and space, particularly the space-time continuum. The time-space continuum, I'll never get that right. And how that time is morphing dramatically for everyone now. It's not just the tuned-in people. Everyone is noticing and feeling the morph of time, which is very much an aspect of our moving into the fourth dimension. So although we aspire to being in the fifth and sixth and seventh and Hare Krishna all the way up to the 11th density, as they say, why are you bypassing the fourth? This is a lot of work gets done in the fourth dimension. How come? Is it like not worthy of your attention? Or when did the human race believe that they were just going to completely bypass the fourth dimension and spread their wings and already achieve light-body consciousness in fifth, sixth, and seventh dimension consciousness? And it's like, really? I don't think that the human race is ready for that. I don't think we've evolved to that.
Well,
not everyone.
Yeah, it's like you're coming with the adult in the room. You're coming with the adult in the room message because there's been so much. I mean, I'm just speaking from a content point of view that says, oh, get ready for the fifth dimension. And a lot of memes that say, oh, the fourth density, that's really the province of the Dracos and all these manipulatory energies. And it's like, that's a meme that has been circulating in that segment, which has been very narrow, and I don't know how wide it is, of the population that even knows what a density is and that pays attention to it at the conscious level, at the, reads books on the density, and such as you write and publish, and such as I write and publish, and such as our colleagues do. And I'm so blown by this information in chapter 8. I'm just blown away that, because I've had so many conversations about the ascension and the fifth density and the earth and the whole thing. And then it turns out that if in fact it's the sun that's ascending and a rising tide raises all boats. And I've been walking around and saying, okay, who's doing this to time? Why am I running out of time every day? It's like all of a sudden I wake up, I used to wake up at 8, now I wake up at 6 just to make sure, and still I look up and it's 2:00 in the afternoon.
Me too.
I mean,
every single day, even though I'm very aware of this, even though I'm conscious of it as a reality concern, every day I look up and it's 4:00.
Yeah.
And I just don't understand it. It's like, how can you justify how this time is leaking? It's leaking. It's morphing. It is, in one of my workshops, I described the space-time continuum as a sheet of aluminum foil.
Right.
And I had the sheet of aluminum foil in my hand, and then I crumpled a part of it. And then the last piece was flat again. So I said, now, this is the space-time continuum. So moving along the space-time continuum that you're convinced is one directional, past, present, future. But it isn't, because it's simultaneous, which is a whole other discussion. You come into this crinkle for whatever reason, whatever caused that crinkle, it's there. And, you know, you journey through these folds and crevices in the time-space menagerie, but you're still in the space-time continuum, aren't you? But it doesn't have the same properties, obviously. Or can you skip over it? I mean, this is, you know, quantum physics kinds of things, but on a more simplistic note, most people that I speak with, even, now I live in the Azores Islands, people are very simple here, and the beauty of that is insurmountable. But still, I mean, you can talk about how the cows are and what the weather's like, but still people are talking about this, not highly sophisticated conversations, just what's happening to the time. Something weird is happening. Somebody said to me the other day, Patricia, something is weird is happening. I all of my life I've been working with cows, and he said, I don't have enough time. Something is, I get up earlier and still there's not enough time. The cows are off sync. And I can't, of course, say, well, there's a crinkle in the space-time continuum. But it is. It's part of our shifting out of this realm. So when you say this is a complete mind shift from the meme I've been involved with, yeah, the standard concept of alternative reality, multidimensional thought, is that we individuals are going to ascend. And, you know, or the earth is going to split in two, and some of us are going to ascend and some of us are going to burn in hell. And the council, I don't know any other channeled material that describes in such depth how the sun is already starting to move through this tube, this astral cord. And isn't it interesting when you think about some of the things that are being depicted now? All the planets are increasing their magnetic fields. There is a shift in the dynamic energy between Earth and the solar magnetic dynamic. Planets are heating up, they're rotating faster, they're brighter. Saturn's rings are morphing. Yeah, it's all has to do with the fact that the whole system is becoming more refined in preparation of having a Kundalini rising. If you can put it in those terms, the sun is about to have a Kundalini rising. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, it's mind-blowing. It's just complete.
And there's a part of the book, this new book, that shows how there's a hole in the sun. There's actually a picture of this from Soho, because more and more we've been seeing pictures where there are holes in the sun. It's like, wait a minute, wasn't this a mass of neutron gas? Wasn't the sun a massive celestial body? And more we're seeing that there are holes there. You've heard of the famous keyhole in the sun. And again, the councils say that aspects of the sun flutter into the fourth dimension and then return. So you can look at that as a physical phenomenon, and the scientists, of course, are always baffled. Why is this happening? But it is happening, and the scientists are talking about it. So their answer is they're baffled by what it could mean. But from the metaphysical point of view and from the Sirian information, this is the sun starting to test that, like when you have a Kundalini experience, energy rises and comes back down, rises and comes back down, and that's what's happening. This plasma is starting to leak into the fourth dimension, and then it comes back because it's not ready. It's not ready for that complete evolution. And I want to add also that a lot of people are talking about how the sun is not yellow anymore, it's white. Have you had that observation?
You mean personally?
Yeah.
Well, in Vancouver, we don't see the sun very much. It's out today because we're in a microclimate with Seattle. So we have cloud cover maybe 60% of the year. And I haven't observed it, but I've seen photos and I've had people tell me that. And I will start observing that.
Well, the council say that it's because of the refinement of the vibrational essence of that celestial body. That's why it's turning white.
It's the refinement of
the energy field of that celestial being. So it's resonating at a higher frequency already, and it's reflected in the fact that it's becoming whiter and obviously more pure. And of course, that has nothing to do with any kind of socially or politically correct concept that white is pure, but rather that it is just a refinement of energy.
Right. Now, you used a very interesting group of words. You said, of that celestial being. And normally in science, you say, of that celestial body. And so could you elaborate, please?
All right. Well, science is one way to look at the world, and metaphysics is the other, or one other. And I'm in the metaphysical camp. Although you wouldn't think it by a lot of the information that's in this book, because there's a lot of physics in this book from the council. But I see everything as a being. And the council referred to all celestial aspects as beings or deities. So, I mean, somebody could say Alfred Weber is a white Caucasian male, Harvard grad or whatever, or somebody could say Alfred Weber is a highly evolved spiritual being. And I don't see why that would confuse anyone. If you still see the sun and the earth and all the planets as things or objects or bodies, that denies that they have a spirit or soul. And according to the council, and certainly in my perspective, all living beings have soul, consciousness.
And so that accounts for what in our mainstream history books are called sun worshipers, sun worshiping societies.
Yes, well, we were closer. That's why the native indigenous people were so much closer spiritually to the reality that I'm bringing through, and that many metaphysicians are bringing through, because, you know, throughout time immemorial, they knew that the celestial beings, the bodies, were conscious beings. And then, of course, you have the transition from that into God consciousness, which is very human in nature, because it seeks that which is beyond the human experience to give it a nomenclature of a God. Is it a God? What is a God? I don't have an answer for that. But I do comfortably state that it makes total sense to me that these things we see in the sky, these stars, these planets, the sun that nurtures, think about what the sun gives. You know, you only need to sit in a field and watch the sun caress a blade of grass to imagine the magnificence that being, that consciousness brings to life on this planet and everywhere else.
So what do you imagine the consciousness of the sun to be? I mean, of that being, the sun. What is the consciousness of the being, the sun?
Oh, that's a toughie. To describe the sun's consciousness?
Yeah, I mean, does the new Sirian revelations or any of the material that you've been reading address any of that, for example?
Well, I don't know that I can just simply define the consciousness of the sun as a finite aspect, but rather that it is a huge force of energy, an incredible being that is moving up like us to higher realms of consciousness, that has, I mean, think about it this way. The sun is the soul, if you will, of the planets that surround it. And each planet is a chakra, an energy vortex. And it's really quite remarkable. You think of it that way. Earth is the communication chakra, the throat chakra. Venus is the heart chakra. This is also depicted in one of the earlier books, I think in The Cosmos of Soul, how the colors of the planets and their vibrations are simply chakras.
And what is Mars as far as the chakra?
Power.
Power. Oh, so Mars is power.
Power chakra. Venus is the heart chakra. The earth is the communication chakra, which is why it's interesting, because look at it this way, Alfred. For the people that are listening and understand what the chakras are, we always equate the throat chakra as the communication chakra. And we always equate this with the color blue. And if you look on any image of the chakra rainbow inside every human being, blue is the color of the throat, right? So here's the Earth. It's the blue-green planet. And it is the communication station beyond all recognition in the middle of the solar system. It is completely encased in satellite systems. I have seen pictures that are composite images of what surrounds the Earth. It's just like this outer space crust of satellite communication devices. It's very interesting. And Mars is, well, some people associate the power chakra with war, and that's a lot of hooey as to what power is. It's like affiliating Sekhmet, the goddess Sekhmet. Are you familiar with Egyptian mysticism?
Yeah, a bit, but you can explain it to our viewers.
Okay. Well, the goddess Sekhmet is one of my favorites, and she is known in Egyptian mysticism as the goddess of war and destruction. Why? Because she represents female power. And throughout history, this is again in my opinion, the Egyptian hierarchy did not want empowered women. So Sekhmet, empowered female energy, represents war and destruction.
Wow, that's how they use reversals to really block a whole gender
throughout time. So when I bring people to this effigy of Sekhmet, yes, she's powerful and demands respect. There's this effigy at Thebes, at Karnak Temple, in this little godforsaken little temple that you wouldn't even know was there if somebody didn't take you. And there sits this mighty statue of Sekhmet, and she's the lion goddess. And of course, the Sirian depiction of the Sirians, of one planetary life form of Sirians, is the lion people. Murray Hope wrote a book called The Lion People. Mm. And that's a very interesting book, a little teeny tiny book, Murray Hope, The Lion People, and about the Sirian beings. And our goddess is Sekhmet. She's a lioness with the moon over her head. And you don't want to mess with her. But it's not because she's the goddess of war. It's because she's tower, female tower. And I'll tell you what, in that temple in Karnak, weird things happen in there. They've tried to move that statue and it is not going to be moved. And it's the only, in all of my travels in the world, and I have been really so many places, Tibet, Peru, all of the Mexican wonders, Egypt, nothing has been more mind-blowing to me than this statue. It's alive. It has life. When you look at it the first time, the eyes trigger and it mutates and it morphs into different forms. It's very powerful. And it's a Sirian effigy par excellence.
Now, let me ask you this. If we move forward to chapter 9, which is entitled Parallel Universes, a Cosmic Hall of Mirrors.
This is a tricky chapter.
Yeah, I'll say. If I have your permission, I'd like to read from the first
I love when you read.
paragraph. It says, we reiterate that there exist several Earths occurring simultaneously across the universe of matter. They exhibit several degrees of diversity in an expanse of many parallels that exist as three-dimensional planetary stations there, as they coexist simultaneously as various frameworks in different degrees of reality. These worlds are just as physical as yours. They are almost twins to yours, where diverse cause and effect scenarios play out alternative responses to stimuli on every level. Each has different evolutionary pace, but relative to the one you most likely perceive as the only one, and each offers different outcomes to your personal and social issues. So, which one are we on now?
Well, that's their point, is that you believe your perception of yourself and your world is that this is the only place you exist. Not to say that you don't believe you also have the ability to perceive higher dimensions, because we're really starting to learn that we are multidimensional beings. And even in the dream state, that doesn't fit into any finite explanation of being in body. But we do, we do identify ourselves with Alfred is over there, Pat's over here, and we identify with this, what we believe is the reality. Counselor saying, well, actually you exist in many mirrors of this earth reality, other earths in the 3D perspective, which is very hard for me to, I have to tell you that it's very hard for me to understand this. I can get my head around earth ascending to a finer density much more easily than I can imagining that there's Earth A, B, C, D, F, G all over the universe.
Right.
But it's a fascinating idea, and we discussed this also in the last conversation, how a lot of hypophysics and physicists, quantum physicists, are talking about how the multiverse could very well be a collection, together of bubbles. Remember the bubble theory?
Yeah.
And I'll repeat that here. Michio Kaku, who is a renowned quantum physicist, talked about how perhaps the universe didn't start with a big bang. Perhaps it's perennially unfolding by some force of energy, which you could call God or anything you'd like to call it, a perennial force that, like a jacuzzi, keeps pushing the water up and causing bubbles to form. But of course, there's always this question, yeah, but how, it just exists? I mean, is there a prime mover here? Which is a conversation for a whole other 2-hour conversation. But at any rate, he and other quantum physicists talk about how this bubbling jacuzzi universe keeps making bubbles, and that each of these bubbles is a universe. Not a galaxy, a universe. And that as they bubble up, they are interfacing with each other, because we know how bubbles clump together, or you can have a clump of bubbles where there's 100 bubbles all attached, something like the six-sided beehive energy formations. All right, they're all clumped together, and that film or membrane of soap, let's call it soap for the cake because it's a metaphor for what we're trying to describe. That membrane between the bubbles is where you theoretically exist in both universes. So let's say that in that membrane of galactic space, which could be infinitely enormous, you exist and reflect into the bubble on this side and the other one at the same time. But that bubble has a similarity. Are you with me? This is very complicated.
I'm following you with bated breath, as they say,
okay.
Whatever that means.
So let's say you've got two bubbles that are like this, all right? Or that's not let's say that a piece of paper would represent the wall between these two bubbles.
Yeah.
But the rest of this universe over here has all these other integers or factors in the nature of the membrane on the other side of the bubble. But here, you exist, Alfred Weber exists on that universe side and on that universe side, but on this side it's different because there are other factors that are factoring into that film or membrane. It's very complicated, and it's, you've got to be sure you don't have any wine when you're thinking about it, because it will really confuse you. But it's very exciting that we're thinking in this way. Very exciting. And just the nature of thinking about these things makes us more multidimensional.
Well, but also, do they talk about alternative or parallel universes with multiple Patricia Coris in them? I mean, multiple.
Yeah, I'd like to take the opportunity to read from this.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
We are stating that you, a multidimensional being, coexist in a parallel world simultaneously. You do live parallel lives, experimenting with different challenges, opportunities, and choices that you respond to or create in this, your perceived primary reality. So do your loved ones, including the animals you protect and nurture, exist in and respond to an infinite array of similar situations and environments that coexist in those same simultaneous worlds to yours. Contrary to several hypothetical interpretations of time and the space-time continuum, there is no predetermined negative or absolutely positive timeline for Earth or any other planet or star or galaxy. On there are degrees, fields of opportunity in which possible realities play out. On what you may understand to be different timelines, running along the galactic conveyor belts that define the space-time continuum. These are laced throughout the physical universe, propelling everything in a sort of cohesive, futuristic, or past construct, which is most accurately described as a forward and backward perspective, but that is still far from accurate. To describe the indescribable, we hope to bend those linear terms with which you are familiar in order to eliminate and speak in terms that are relative to, but not limited to, your experience. And so in this passage, they're telling us that this idea of linear time is slipping away from us. The fact that we're seeing time disappear is because we are moving into a conscious space where there is no time in that within those parameters. And that's where you start thinking about coexisting. in other worlds. You look befuddled.
Well, no, I was contemplating. So does that mean that time, linear time, was associated with duality, which is the era that we've just come out of?
Well, we're not completely out of it yet.
Yeah, I know. But I mean, I win, you lose. You know, like we're going to have long time, linear time equals I win, you lose equals duality. And we're sort of closing the book on third density duality. Is that part of the equation, would you think?
I think that we are at the apex point of that change, and that what's playing out right now is the collapse of those extreme dualities. It's just all collapsing, and a new paradigm is emerging. And we're still struggling with this. This is why I don't think that we're necessarily prepared yet to let go of that. That's how we have understood and perceived all reality for such infinite time through history. So this is why we're befuddled with a lot of things like, yeah, how come this days? It's not just the hours in a day, it's the weeks, it's the months. It's like, it's going to be 2018 in a few days. How did that happen? So yeah, I do think that we are accelerating to a frenzy into this higher density. And I do think that the fourth dimension is a higher density, even though it does pose problems. And yes, there can be archons and there can be Anunnaki there. Why not? But there can also be beauty, splendor, rainbows, peace. And that this description that the council have given us, the fourth dimension, is that this is where you confront your karma and deal with it. It's not to be confused with a religious guilt scenario of asking for forgiveness for your sins, but rather this is where you look at the collective karma of your civilization, your species, your planet, and your own doings within that framework, which is why I don't adhere to the split earth theory. It's like we're all going to have to look at this. I have responsibility too. I have to deal with the responsibility that I have in my behavior and my walk through this earth. And so do you want to adhere to or vibrate to the extreme darkness in that dimension? Or do you want to create and resonate to the higher, the love? But the difference is, I'm getting a little semantic here. I believe that in the fourth dimension, more than now, you have an immediate effect on what you call in, what you see, what you experience, what you deal with, than what you fear now. Does that make sense, Alfred?
Oh, it makes very good sense. And what it also, for me, brings up is one of the findings that we made over the last several years in our work on the omniverse model, and that is that one of our findings is that the universes seem to be machines for the development of souls. Is that consistent or congruent with what you find in the Sirian High Council?
No.
No? It's, well, why not?
You're asking me if that's what I'm getting from the council, not if that's a possible reality.
Yeah, because, and the finding is as follows. If you look at a universe as a holographic ecology of dimensions. It's a dimensional ecology. So you have, first density, second density, third density, and souls incarnate into it, from lower third to upper third to fourth, the journey that we're all going into. As a metaphor, I think of a universe in one way and a density as a washing machine. And the souls is dirty laundry. Let's say you put your dirty laundry in and you turn in and it's got the wash, the rinse, and the spin cycle. And so the wash is like lower third density. The rinse is the middle third density, and the spin cycle is the upper third density. And then for the dryer, they pop you up into the fourth density. You see what I'm saying? So, I mean, it's just kind of a rough thing for the effect on the soul of going through higher frequencies. And so that by the time the soul, through however millennia of time that takes, and by the time he gets to the fourth density of this particular, holographic collection or bubble, that soul is pretty well smidgened out. It's fit for prime time in a more divine, because you're trying to return to source. So at that point, it's more developed. And so it's a machine for soul development.
How does your model account for souls that come in already highly evolved, zip right through, and go back out?
I mean, nobody's perfect. No.
The same process.
But wait. There are various hypothetical cases. This is like how many angels fit on the end of a pin. If you look at, for example, Dr. Michael Newton's data, he says that incarnation is only one of the various activities that souls do in the interlife. Other things is that souls, they help maintain universes, they create new species, they create planets, they create solar systems, together with the spiritual beings and source. So that's that part of the omniverse, the spiritual dimensions. You've got the universe, the multiverse, and the omniverse. And the spiritual dimensions, and together they make up the omniverse, which is a dimensional ecology. And the universes are where it all comes together. The universes of time, energy, space, and matter. So that's congruent with sciences, because the science sides, if you ask a scientist, well, what's a universe? Scientists will say, well, that's a holographic, that's an organic unit, an organic holographic unit of space, time, energy, and matter. That's what a universe is. It says, yeah. And those are created by the collective action of the intelligent civilization of souls, spiritual beings, and source that are in the spiritual dimensions with using various tools. And there are all sorts of, you can put it together from the Urantia book, you can put it together from the new Sirian revelations, from all sorts of puzzles. You see how that process happens through the interlife. And you come to the conclusion, well, what mission, what function does a universe serve in this, in this omniverse Rube Goldberg type of a thing? Oh, it's to develop souls. So you have souls that are created, and then they go into the universes they're developed through incarnation, but they're also developed by maintaining the universes of the multiverse, by populating them, developing, they go in and they regulate time and da 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 da.
And who creates these souls?
They can even aspire to be sons,
But who creates these souls? You said these souls are created. Who creates them?
Well, see, we're at the very beginning. I mean, what Dr. Michael Newton says in his thing, and I believe we're at the infancy of the science of the omniverse. And so we don't know. But here are some versions. The souls of who report back on Michael Newton's side through hypnotic regression of memories, of soul memories of the interlife. He says that if you look at source as a sea of light, souls are are like eggs of light, or holographic fragments of that sea of light, and that there's a specific manufacturing process for the souls, which are holographic fragments of source, and that if you read all of the volumes, you'll be able to put it together. And I imagine that in the Sirian High Council, it's pretty congruent to describing what the souls are and what the actions of souls are, because you're dealing with all the same sort of phenomenon. And so
those Sirians say very simply that we're all sparks of divine light, and that we break away from this mass of divinity to experience existence, and that at that point of breaking of deity, of divinity, wanting to experience itself, these fragments or sparks of divinity break away, leap into the darkness to find their way back up to source, like you said. And in doing that, to have the free will experience that we know and love in most of our discoveries. So we're talking about the same thing, probably semantically a little bit different.
Yeah,
but
it is.
There's
all of this a Rashomon story, and I'm going to mute myself because otherwise this 5-planet Gemini will just interrupt you too much, and all of my viewers will complain and they'll say, Alfred. So no, but that is so we're actually saying the same thing, and that's, in my mind, how spiritual science is developed, because you have these sources from the Sirian High Council, and then you have the sources from Dr. Michael Newton's 7,000 cases of using a uniform protocol, hypnotic regression of soul memories from the interlife, and they're both describing the identical process. So I'm validating, from the science of the omniverse, I'm validating, from my perspective, the Sirian High Council and the New Sirian Revelations views of the soul.
Yes.
Yeah. Now let's go to chapter 10, which is Stargates, Wormholes, and Portals, and that's a very popular topic because you have people like DARPA and the CIA developed all this technology under contract with the Vatican. The Vatican kind of subcontracted to DARPA, and Gay said, here's a thing called a chronovisor. It lets you develop you know, it's like a TV set that you can dial up what it's like. Go to any address in time and space and you'll see what's happening there. And, you know, it could be a 3D TV set, you know, or a 2D TV set, a 3D TV set where you're actually inside it, or 4D or something. So, and then it can be time travel machines. And then this is all the evidence that those of us who work with the chrononaut, the time travel whistleblowers, okay, have gathered. So this is very interesting because it starts from black holes in the new Sirian revelation.
Are you going to read it?
I'm sorry?
Are you going to read from the chapter?
Would you like me to? Yes? Okay. Now that quantum physicists are beginning to understand the true nature of black holes and how they lead to other dimensions, we wish to elucidate how immense are the passageways, tunnels, and tubes that traverse the physical universe itself, the space of matter, and how they expand, contract, are birth, and wither in the face of intelligent design and intent.
I hope people can see your expressions. You're asking me to elaborate on that?
Please.
Oh boy. So the council say that we don't understand space at all. The scientists don't get it at all. And that space itself is a conscious body. So that every particle, every aspect is conscious of itself, self-aware. And that it works, of course, as a unified field. But each particle also has individual consciousness and has attributes, some of which are physical and some of which are not. For example, they say that you have yet to understand that the real way that craft move has very little to do with your novice understanding of anti-gravity and more to do with their ability to telepathically alter the surrounding space their craft is in. So first of all, they telepathically communicate with the particles and aspects of the space itself. And they simply, a craft moving through, let's say a highly developed craft moving through space, simply activates, heats up the plasma of space. And it's not the right word, plasma, but let's use that as a metaphor, okay? It heats it up in front of the craft and it freezes it behind the craft, and this propels the craft in any given direction. So that when you see these 90-degree angles where UFOs do the 90-degree turn, which I've seen in the sky, they're simply adjusting space. This is why some of these crafts that have been found are found with very little devices. I mean, we've heard about the Roswell craft had very little, supposedly, very little mechanics in the ship because they're working with the space around the craft. It makes total sense. And so, we're figuring out anti-gravity motors and we're all excited about this. And I think that a lot of this information is misinformation. And that the council say, actually, it's much more simple than that. It's understanding that the nature of physical universe is life, it's conscious, it's energy. And when you understand the energy, you can alter the energy. And when you alter the energy, it propels you. That's how you go up and down. That's how you go sideways. That's how you do your 90-degree turns. And that's how you go careening through space. And what's very interesting about this chapter is it compares the discussion about tunnels in the physical reality and vortices that are multidimensional, such as the sun and black holes. The fact that the sun, they describe the black hole as the astral core of the sun. So that would be taking us into a higher dimension, which now NASA is openly discussing. Before, Stephen Hawking's, they were talking about singularity. Everything goes into the hole, and that's a Vita zone. And now we're hearing, well, maybe that's not the truth. Maybe it doesn't all collapse into singularity. Maybe, in fact, there's something on the other side. You think? It's like white holes appearing, and the council have always said the black hole, the energy goes out, the white hole, it comes back in. So if you perceive everything as energy, you start to understand the simplicity. It's much more simple than we think. And I think that a lot of this information that we think is very exciting, and we see people comparing crop circles to motors and anti-gravity devices, and I think it's a ruse. I think space travel is a piece of cake. You just alter the space. So, let's see, I'm looking for a little thing here, because over here is where I've got the text. Okay, I'd like to read this. Although they are slowly opening to the possibility of a divine design to the universe, your operatives in all phases of space exploration still have not entirely embraced the fact that space itself is not a void. Rather, it is a wholly conscious, interacting energy field, constantly altered by the intentions, thoughts, and consciousness of every being within it. Space is neither uniform nor stable. All is in a perpetual state of evolution, interaction, and mutation. Every celestial form, every sound, very important, each emits, and every thought that rides the wave of the unified field affects the quality, the density, and the formation of space. And then it goes on to talk about the subatomic world, the subatomic nature of the universe, from the microscopic to the macroscopic. And oh my God, doesn't it make perfect sense that beings that understand, that have reached that level of consciousness where they understand how to alter the molecular nature of all things, know how to zip around in space? Because we know that when you heat up atoms, they expand, right? Right? Yes. So we know that the molecular structure is such that you heat it up, the molecules expand. When you cool it down, they contract. So, full speed ahead, live long and prosper. Push open the spatial continuum, or the plasma, for lack of a different word, by heating up, whether that's telepathically or whether there's mechanization to achieve that, heating up the space in front of the craft, cooling down the space behind the craft, hyperspace. And it really makes a lot more sense than anti-gravity machines and all of this information, which is still very 3D. Agreed that space, we're talking about three-dimensional space, but what I'd like to suggest is that some of these visitors, if you will, or these craft, are not confined merely to the nature of three-dimensional reality as we understand it, the physical dimension as we understand it.
Now, there's a paragraph in this chapter 10 that I found very interesting that is kind of a variation on that. But it says, the material universe is not impenetrable. Planets and stars are not actually divided by insurmountable distances, nor is space the unforgiving environment that has for so long been depicted to be to interested audiences. Rather, it is a thriving metropolis of galactic highways with their entrances, exits, and thoroughfares, and where the laws of Earth-based physics barely apply. And the image that I got was like, the universe is really a beehive. And in fact, there's some, I think it was Napoleon or perhaps some other figures throughout history chose a beehive as their symbol. And in some cosmology, beehives are like, have a special cosmological meaning. The universe is...
Well, because in fact, the beehive is the most efficient use of space from a geometrical point of view.
Yeah. Now,
but,
go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, does that paragraph, in fact, that gives a certain, I mean, that's way beyond our current kind of Star Trek conception. I mean, it just takes a Star Trek conception and pushes it even further.
It pushes it further. I mean, yeah, Star Trek gave us the idea of wormholes.
Yeah.
Whereas this chapter, the council says that actually the universe, the physical universe, is more like Swiss cheese.
Yeah.
It's just, full of highways. And in these vortices, you're talking about breaking. Well, we all know the classic symbol of the universe wrapped around, instead of being just a never-ending plane. We've seen the model of the universe being a torus, where to cut through the other side of the universe, all you'd have to do is go through the middle rather than go around, right?
Right.
And so this material talks about how there's also the fact that there are all kinds of tunnels that some of them are temporary, some of them are permanent. Some of them have been, let's say, created as major thoroughfares. Some of them open and shut down when a craft goes through. But that it's still very hard for us to perceive of that, because for us, it's like a highway means that you cut across town and there's, it's a physical construct. And what the council are saying is, yes, there are these constructs because there are many levels of reality in the universe. So there are the physical byways that cut through, even through time. And when you talk about, of course, your wonderful work with time travel and Mars and the information you brought forward on that, the jump room, there's also the time machine concept, but there's also the possibility that actually there's craft zipping around through different time zones. We go from one time zone to another on a plane. Why would it be hard to imagine that a craft could go from one time universe to another, or one time huge, much more vast time periods, and cut through by use of a thoroughfare? One of the things that, when we keep talking about all these different aspects of this new book, one of the things that comes home is that, oh boy, I just forgot what I was going to say. That there's a commonality, I think, in so much of the things that we're talking about, and that is understand that everything you've perceived as reality, or as verifiable, or as your ground, your truth, is about to be blown apart. And if you don't have a good ground as to who you are and your own energy, if you're too mental, you could blow your fuse. So there's got to be a wonderful, in order to be comfortable in this change that we're in, we all need to be very grounded as far as our physicality, our health, our stature, our emotion, and being careful not to be blown from side to side with theory, including this, that's all over the road. And above all, it's time for discernment, big time. And when you say, this person says this person says this, the council say this, Like you said, you've got to weed through all of these things and make them very personal to your own experience. And what's very exciting here is that we are being shown really plausible things, possibilities that are grounded in my opinion, in very tangible truths. I mean, it makes total sense to me that there could be thoroughfares in space. It makes total sense to me that, of course, you can manipulate a craft by altering the molecules of space. As we become these multidimensional beings, and you talk about the omniverse, as we understand the microscopic world, subatomic, we never have really, I mean, only the scientists are there with the microscopes looking at this stuff. But as we become more in tune with these realities, all these new potential fields that we feel are coming to us from extragalactic, extra-dimensional beings, they're at our fingertips. We just have to look at them in a new way. And that's what the council is giving us in this material.
Wow. Yeah, so starseed, the soul of interstellar dust.
I'm laughing because I love your wonder. It's a beautiful thing to behold.
Well,
okay.
Yeah. So this seems like the panspermia, the whole, there's a whole theory of, in fact, I just received a book on panspermia that was just published, and the whole theory that one way that life intelligently moves throughout the universe is through supernovas, for example, or through these explosions where molecules like the C60 molecule, which some people, there's been a big discovery just in the last couple of decades about this new carbon-60 molecule, which has all these wonderful properties. And now it says, the star is shedding its skin of its material form and accelerating into a higher dimension where it will hold a new position and resonate to a new vibration in the cosmos of soul. This is a simplistic description of a very complex event. Could you kind of summarize all of that for us? I mean, sort of unpack it for us?
Okay. Just as we, in the death process, leave behind the skeleton of our physical existence and journey as soul essence to our next destination, so do stars leave behind their physical form and journey in soul body to their next dimension. So what they're talking about here is the sun in this transition to the higher dimension is bursting the explosive energy of that experience, spreads this light, this, let's call it energy for a minimal expression of what that is, to then bring more life to other worlds that are not going to that next dimension. Just like if a tree dies, when a tree dies, the pollen reaches the soil propagates the pollen, a new tree is born, blah, blah, blah. The perennial essence of life, this is how the universe is formed. And in this chapter, they're talking about, like you said, pansperma, that they're talking about, remember that it's not just physicality that's being spread across the universe, but soul consciousness, not just matter. And that is what they're talking about here. This is a simplistic description of a very complex event, because they're talking about the spirit, the essence of that solar star body is in a very profound and yet simple way, assuring that that nature that had reached that point continues its life cycle indefinitely, infinitely. How beautiful is that? And that, you know, even our physical bodies, they don't, if you were just to leave a human body in the earth, it would nourish the earth, it would feed the plants, right? So, and here they say, what did I want to read to you? As for interpenetrating layers of interstellar dust comprised of various gaseous forms, cosmic elements, rays, minute bits of carbon, magnesium, silicates, and iron, understand that this interstellar dust is not merely the soot and debris of a so-called dying star. It is, to the contrary, a very vital and conscious manifestation, one that permeates all space with your star system, between stars, and across all space in between. And that gets back to the multiverse and the different universes connected with the film, and it's very galactic information. But it's very beautiful, and it's also very nourishing to think that even a sun in supernova or exploding and passing into another dimension, even that is a reflection of our own existence. So when you say, are these celestial bodies, you call them celestial beings. Yeah, celestial beings.
Now, just a few chapters later, chapter 15, there's on a crash course with artificial intelligence, which cues into a big concern that everyone has about the transhumanist agenda. You know, are they creating some kind of a cyborg race now? Is AI going to, or has it surpassed human? Is there, you know, the equivalence? And the new Sirian revelations have a slightly, again, different view from the current view on the planet, because it says most of the human race is operating on less than 10% of its DNA information, holding your species in instinctive animal behaviors of fear and survival consciousness. So what kind of a process does the Sirian High Council talk about? I know this has really shifted my view since I've read this particular paragraph, because it says, you will be witness and participant in the coming years in the awakening of the complex DNA matrix in vast numbers of human beings, rather than in only a select few who have achieved partial activation of those dormant threads, who are born with more DNA illuminated. And it seems to me that that's really like one of the main characteristics of what, quote, our awakening is about. It's DNA activation.
Yes.
Yeah, and I wondered if you could bring us in more in depth and breadth into that whole aspect.
All right. Well, looking back to the earlier material, the council described how we were an experiment, and the Sirians were involved in that experiment. In fact, they call it the Sirian experiment, nesting Homo sapiens on the Earth. This is a very complex information. On the other hand, a lot of people are aware of this. And they said that we were originally designed with 12 strands of DNA active, and that we were supposed to be light beings, light-bodied beings walking. But the Anunnaki intervened and stripped out, electromagnetically stripped out 10 of those strands. So Barbara Marciniak also brought forward this information, so it's not unique to the Sirians. All right, so they said that we were 12-stranded light beings. Imagine light beings walking. Christ's walking is how we were designed. And an electromagnetic chain was put around the Earth, we know that, to bring us down to 2 strands, which is survival. Duality is coded into our DNA. And if this sounds far-fetched, one only has to ask, well, okay, then why do they say that we only operate on 5% of our brain? Some scientists say 3 or 4% of the brain, and the rest is gray matter. And they say we have only part of our DNA is active and the rest is junk. And the council are quick to point out that there are no accidents in creation. So that, gee whiz, Batman, if this much of our brain is active and this is gray, and this much of our DNA is active and this is junk, do you think there's a correlation here? And the council openly have talked about this throughout all of the works that I've brought through, how this is like a switchboard. Imagine an old-fashioned phone switchboard, and these plugs have been unplugged from the cerebral cortex. And that's one of the reasons why the pineal gland has shrunk down to such a small size. It used to be really like a pine cone in the brain. Now it's the size of a pea. And they're doing the best they can to destroy it with fluoride. So I'm sure you're well aware of fluoride being used against the human race with the excuse of protecting your teeth. Fluoride leaves a powdery film around the pineal gland and anesthetizes people from that. What the pineal gland is, which is popularly known as the third eye, but is so much more. So the council are saying that this is one of the reasons why you're seeing all of these organizations that are asking you to send in your DNA, and they'll send you back your ancestry, and they are collecting the DNA of as many human beings as possible, and animals and plants. And they are, obviously at work using human DNA, snippets of DNA, to reassemble or to merge human beings with alien species, with AI, and trying to understand with animals, sorry. So this is something that's very frightening to me personally. AI and the merging of human beings, the experiments that are being done, merging human DNA with animals. These mutations, I believe, occurred before on this planet. And I think that the gods of Egypt were actual mutated DNA creatures. So that's just an opinion of mine. Obviously, most people think it was the god represented the energy of the animal, but yeah, I don't think so. I think that this occurs in too many mythologies, and the attributes of an animal on a human form. I think that really occurred. I think it's very dangerous, and in some ways, it's as dangerous, or if not more, as AI of its own. But the council say that, remember, as much as you fear AI, and I do, I don't like the word fear, but I'm very concerned about it. But remember that nothing can ever surpass human consciousness. So they're telling us that it will, it's going to have its own ability to supplant the human race. And very possibly, and I know, Alfred, your work involves this, investigating how alien beings are pushing the human race toward this AI. But according to the Sirians, it'll never happen. And that makes me very happy. It'll never happen. AI is not of itself self-aware. It's
Very good.
It's being created by conscious beings, or lower conscious beings, but biological intelligence is behind AI, and it will never be able to take over.
Very good. That's very reassuring.
It is.
It is.
Because there are times when it feels like it's already happening. But
and you
they
know,
want us to believe that.
and I can see where one of the memes of the current, and sort of death cult is that, this is going to end in destruction. The fact that the information from the Syrian High Council, which is, we've been able to show through reasonable probability, and people can go to the, some of the sources that we've mentioned. I believe that is part of their resistance, because this is authentic information. This is correct information. Now, we're on chapter 18, which is the last of the chapters, and it says the end of the old ways days. And it says that perpetual infinite threat of annihilation and the stimulation of your lower energy vortices allows those who wish to control you a more or less guaranteed and predictable behavior that can be directed according to their specific intention. In their last desperate push to hold on to control, why do the Venetian bloodlines and the ancient Iranian bloodlines come up and the papal bloodlines come up at this time? I mean, you lived in those circles. I mean, not circles, but in those geographical areas. Maybe you
don't remind me.
Wish to control you are more or less guaranteed. In their last desperate push to hold on to control, the power that has ruled for so long has stimulated society across the world to new levels of hatred and rage. Oh my God, but never so much as now. This is indeed the hour of your liberation, and the rulers of the old ways know, but don't even know how to let go. So how does the Syrian High Council tell them or let them know? Let go, let go.
The only way they can let go is by they are not of their own volition going to let go of this clutch that they have on power. The only way that's going to happen is by us being in fearlessness of whatever it is they're throwing at us. And in that fearlessness.
Sorry, I missed that. Could you wind up the only way that they're going to
the only way they're going to let go of their clutches, is in resignation to the fact that the human race has ceased through them. The human race refuses to bow down. We refuse to mutate, to continue. No, we are mutating into a new way of seeing who we are and our responsibility for the planet. And in an earlier book, they said the tighter they squeeze you, the freer you become. And it's a beautiful, beautiful statement. And it's true. The more they do these despicable acts, the more we see through them. I mean, think about 911 back in the day. I mean, to even mention that this was not what it was presented to be would have gotten you on a firing line in most social circles. And now people pretty much get what that was about. So the more we bow down, the more they believe they still have power over us. The more we refuse it fearlessly, the more they recognize that the game is all but lost. And I mean, that might sound simplistic, but this is my message to people. Get out of your fear, get out of this division mentality, get out of your computer, cell phone control, mind control device dependency, and get back to being alive. You're worried about AI, get rid of your phone. This device is murder for human consciousness, right?
Except when they're watching the new Sirian revelations on their phones.
Oh, that's a beautiful segue. So true. Yes, in fact, people do question me about that because I'm avidly anti-technology. And yet, obviously, I'm here with you on this wonderful technology that brings us to so many people. And it's a battle I have. It's like right now, my little dog was extremely ill with a very difficult allergy. And I had to choose to give her raw food. And I'm a vegetarian. And I have to battle with this decision. It's like I'm handling flesh again. I don't like this. And so it's like, this is life. We keep making decisions that aren't black and white. They're not black and white. Nothing is black and white, not really, which is how we start off this conversation. There isn't a good earth and a bad earth. That's not the way it's going to be. It's a refinement of duality. And it's the same way I feel adamant about the cell phone, but yeah, I use it if I have to. But I'm not 24/7 with this device in my face and consciously aware of where the towers are. Some people can say I'm making myself crazy worrying about these things. I don't worry about them. I'm just conscious of them. Yeah. And I think that's a distinction. I don't want to get to, I'm a vegetarian. I don't want to deal with dead animal flesh, but my dog is healed because she's getting the raw meat. And it's just like a constant finding of a center place where you can operate in your highest ethics.
Now, we've actually come just a little bit past the 2-hour mark, which is when we wind down the webinar. And I wondered if there are any subject matters that you had wanted to bring up that you haven't touched on yet.
Oh boy. There's so much in this book and in the other books. There's one thing that's happening, and that is that people are writing like they did with Atlantis Rising. People are telling me that when they hold the book in their hand, they feel a vibration. And this is very exciting to me because in the Atlantis Rising and No More Secrets, No More Lies, people could feel this, actually feel the vibration. And I don't want to set people up for that, because if they get the book and they don't feel the vibration, they're going to be like, what was she talking about? But there seems to be an energy overlace in the book itself and in the books themselves. And some people are able to connect with that. And when they do that, they're really connecting directly with the Sirian energies, which I think is extremely exciting. And so far, from maybe 10 people have written to me, 5 of them have told me they have this experience. So that's a wonderful thing to think about, is that the words stimulate us on so many levels: conscious mind, our mental process, the emotions they evoke. But wow, are the higher dimensional beings able to transmit actual physical vibrations through the printed word? How exciting is that?
Yeah.
So I wanted to share that, and I'd love to hear from people who do read the book if they have that experience.
How can people get in touch with you?
My website, I have two websites. One is SirianRevelations.net, and one is PatriciaCori.com. And I'm on Facebook, and I'm on Twitter, and I am doing computerized communication on some levels. And then, of course, they can find the book pretty much everywhere. It's just out, so there's a bit of a backlog on Amazon, and they can also buy it directly from my publisher, North Atlantic Books. But if they want to get in touch with me, I actually do reply to people who contact me, unless they're ranting about, 87 questions about the formation of the universe, which I just don't have time to address. So I'd love to hear from people, and I'd love to hear their impressions of this work. And by the way, the gnarly sound in the background is the aforementioned dog playing. So if you hear in the background, it's just a puppy.
Yeah. Well, I certainly want to thank you, and I want to thank the Sirian High Council through you for its work and for really paying attention to us here on this planet. And I want to thank you for your dedication, because I know that it certainly over this time period of 20 years, you have been steadfast, and you have developed such a clear vision of and transmission of their message, and at the same time understanding and understanding of their vision and message, and yet at the same time standing in your own truth as, I guess, a human being on earth. So that's quite an accomplishment, and thank you for being who you are and doing what you do.
Thank you, Alfred. It's always a joy to share with you such a brilliant mind, and I'm very grateful for your support and for bringing me back on, and hopefully we will have more of these wonderful discussions.
Oh, yes. We look forward to the occasion when you'll join us again, and we wish you Godspeed on your work. So thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Okay, then.